Well, thank you for joining us for Harnessing Your Wealth. This is Billy Peterson, and I have my guest, Eugene Joyce, today, who is a native of, I guess, back east, Chicago area.
Yeah, I
Huge
tell people I
family.
was born on a little island just east of Utah called Manhattan.
Oh,
Uh,
Manhattan. Damn.
yeah,
So,
no,
yeah, that's
I was
the
born in
island.
New York, but the family moved to Chicago when I was about 18, and then my father decided to move to Wyoming. So
You
that's
know,
kind of
that's
brought
a
me.
typical crossroads. I mean, you go from Manhattan to Chicago to Wyoming. It's just a natural flow. Unless you were on the plains. I mean, back in the days of the Pilgrims, I don't know of anybody else who's done that, Eugene. But
So actually, I was in Los Angeles when my dad asked if I wanted to come and help him out for a summer, and I wound up spending 10 years. But I found, living in Evanston, Wyoming, if you want culture, you have to buy yogurt. But to tell you the truth, the culture all revolves around the horse in these parts, and it's a neat culture. It's the cowboy culture. There's a horse racing culture, and people are really, connected with the animal. I think a lot of people in the big city 150 years ago, everybody had a horse to get around, but then came the automobile. So everybody can relate to the automobile, but out in the Intermountain West, the horse is still a central part of people's lives.
mhm.
So it's kind of
Yeah.
neat.
No, I agree with you, and it's fun to see the connections. You can make a lot of really good friends in this industry, and there's so many different offshoots of the
Right.
horse itself. The horse is uh, used for so many different things, and we call them disciplines, in our little world. But we kind of became connected many years ago through the racing side of it, the discipline of racing. And I knew your dad back in the day. I was riding at Wyoming Downs when you guys were the owners of Wyoming Downs. Your dad bought the racetrack. So for those of you listening, that's the reason why you guys came out west, I believe. And you have a huge family, 13 children, right? Big group of kids that came out here, and you were the fourth oldest, I believe.
Yep.
And your brother Mike, who is probably w- pretty well known in the media circles because he's a host of the racing show. What is it called now? It's not
Well, it's
TVG,
FanDuel TV, but it used to be TVG.
right?
But he's one of the anchors, and he has a lot of different talent. He does interviews. He does travels around the world. Gets to go to Dubai, places like that, Oaklawn Park, and
Yeah, he's a
Churchill Downs.
big shot on the media circuit. And he calls you a chameleon because you can adapt and fit into any circle you want to go to. So you've been everywhere. And I know I mean this is like your fifth or sixth career. Maybe that's shorting it, but you've been in management positions at racetracks like Remington Park, Turf Paradise, Lone Star Park. And then you came to back to Wyoming after you guys sold the track. You came back to Wyoming many years later, like 2011, I think,
Yep.
and started a new organization called Wyoming Horse Racing.
Yeah.
Tell
So
us about that.
when I first came out here in the early '90s, helped my dad back when you and I were both cutting our teeth on this industry, learning the ropes, so to speak. Me on the management side, you on the racing side. Um, I met my wife out here. I tell people I came to Wyoming, and I fell in love with Wyoming. I fell in love with horse racing, and then I just fell in love. Met my wife out here, and we got married. And so after my dad sold it, we kind of had a gypsy's life, as it is in horse racing. Whether you're a jockey, whether you're a trainer, whether you're management, you got to move around in order to get ahead. And so I had jobs running racetracks in New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, Arizona, and I mean, for the first 14 years of my marriage, I had 7 different jobs. I don't think wife thought I could keep a job longer than a couple of years, but again, you got to move around to move ahead in this crazy sport. So yeah, so we had the opportunity in 2011 to come back. There was no horse racing going on. There hadn't been a horse race in 2 years in the state, and I thought maybe we could get things back up and going. Of course, my 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 wife's family being from Evanston, not originally, but still living there, it was nice to come back for her to be with her mom and dad, see them again full time, and so we started, with a 4-day meet at Rock Springs. 3 years later, we passed the historic horse racing bill, which changed the whole dynamic of the sport, and really supercharged the revenue that people could realize by racing horses here in Wyoming. So, period, paragraph, turn the page. 12 years later, we've got 3 operators, potentially a fourth operator. We've got over 50 race days going on. We've got purses north of 7 million for the horsemen, and we've got $9 million in dollars in incentive money for people to breed horses here in Wyoming. So it's really changed things, and it continues to grow. And I think if I had a small part in getting it going, you can put that on my tombstone, because it was all zeros when I started in 2011, and now it's a $200 million industry
Mm.
for the state, and it has really changed the lives of a lot of people who are owners, breeders, trainers. And you and I know most of them. To be able to have a shot at making a decent living with horse racing here in Wyoming.
No, it's been phenomenal. A lot of people are participating, and more every year. The people that I talk to are trying to get a hand in that program. I mean, the surrounding states are unfortunately withering. And I sit here today in my office in Utah at a once thriving horse racing state, the community, the number of horses that were produced and raised, and the owners and people involved in Utah was some of the best horsemen in the world. And by way of just lack of staying up with the competition or not being able to provide the revenue streams, the racing is slowly fading. And this year, the state only offered 4 race days, which I am grateful that it's still alive. A lot of people still love this sport here. Idaho is in a similar spot, and then you have Wyoming. And I want to pick your brain a little bit on how that came together. Obviously, laws are huge, and when you can get legislation passed that helps revenue stream, makes a huge difference in any industry. So tell
Right.
us what that was like and how the revenue trickles into horse racing. What is required, and what does the legislation actually do?
Right. So, as my father loved to say, all the best ideas are stolen. So, Arkansas was the first state to have historic racing, and then you would think a state like Kentucky would not need to have it, but actually, because the surrounding states, the racetracks had casinos, they were losing stallions and broodmares and racehorses to these other states. And so Kentucky passed it, and it really changed the fortunes of that state. And so anyway,
Tell our listeners what that is, what historic racing is.
okay. So it was the brainchild of Lucella at Oaklawn Park, but basically it takes old historical horse races and puts it in a matrix where where you can, if you want to try to handicap it, they'll give you some clues to it. But to tell you the truth, what it does is it creates a game for people that like to play electronic games. But it is 100% parimutuel, which is our industry. And so instead of a lot of states going to ask the legislature, we need a casino to support a racetrack. We were saying, look, this is a pari-mutuel product. This is our industry, and this will help us. And that had some connection with the legislators here in Wyoming. The other thing I would tell you is that simulcasting used to be that revenue source that kept horse racing, but because of ADWs and people being able to bet on their phone, their computer, not a lot of people were going into the OTBs. So it was kind of a paradigm shift, and it is bifurcated in that the gaming customers for historic horse racing are not the horse racing customers that go to the live racing and bet on the simulcast. We're trying to expose horse racing to those customers to try to grow our live crowds and our simulcasting business. But at the end of the day, it is accepted that this is the pari-mutuel product and it's a horse racing product. Whereas other states,
like New Mexico and others that have casinos.
yeah, but but back east, you start to get debates saying, well, why do we need horse racing? Why don't we just take all the money from the casinos?
Right.
So this kind of, inoculates us a little bit about that. The other thing that was central to passing this legislation was we cut out a large chunk of the revenue to go directly to the cities and counties, which was very, very important for the governor at the time, who wanted a new stream of revenue going directly to the cities and counties. And so that got us a lot of support. The other thing I would tell you is, and again, this can only happen to a guy like me. But when we were talking to the governor, and I'm thinking, what are our chances of getting this passed? The governor, by constitution, cannot say whether he would veto a bill or support a bill or sign a bill. But we asked him, I said, what do you think? What's your temperature on this? And honest to God, Billy, this is what he said. He said, I think I owe it to my mother, who was a jockey, to do everything I can to help horse racing.
Wow.
And I nearly fell out of my chair. But his mother, who was the daughter of a previous governor, used to ride in the bushes quarter horse races. And the governor told me his favorite picture of his mother is the gates opening up, and you can see her teeth clenched, and she's got hunk of mane and hank of mane and the reins, and she's coming out of the gate. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, so you can relate to that.
Oh, for sure. And you're so fortunate to have that guy at the right time, being in that position.
Right. And we're creatures of the legislature. So I mean, the political process is so important, and it's so important for the horsemen to get involved in that process on a grassroots level.
Yeah.
Get to know their legislators, because we've seen what's happened in Utah, and we've seen what's happened in Idaho, especially Idaho. That's the cautionary tale. They thought they had things going, and boy, they got absolutely sandbagged by the governor at the time. But there were powerful forces against them, and so we don't take anything for granted here in Wyoming. But no man's fortune is safe while the legislature is in session. Mm-hmm. So we got to be vigilant. But we're an agribusiness, and we have to hammer home that part of the story, and we create a ton of jobs. Yeah. Feed stores, farmers, veterinarians, tax shops, the trainers, there's so many people. It takes so many people, as you know, to get a horse to the racetrack.
Just a single horse ready to compete, right?
Yeah, and again, at the end of the day, if you breed a horse, talk about betting on the come. It's 3 years before that horse is ever going to get to the racetrack. Yeah. And by the time he gets to the racetrack, you've got $25,000, $30,000 investment, bare minimum, a bare minimum of that. And so now you're hoping to make it back. So The breed incentive is real important because you can earn money even if you don't finish first through fifth. And at the end of the year, I mean, it's nice to get a check in February or March for, I don't know, pick a number, 25,000, 50,000, to say, okay, I'll
Keep
try
it
it
going.
again.
So let's talk about that. The incentives, like the Wyoming Bred Awards, is a big pool of money that is distributed to anyone who participates with a Wyoming bred horse, whether that be the breeder or the owner,
Right.
right? So talk about that and how that's grown and the kind of money that they're sending to people.
Yeah. So, first of all, when I came back, I think the breed incentive the year before they quit live racing, the amount of money in the breed incentive pool was $30,000. Like I said, this past year was 9 million. I think we're going to 10, 11, 12 million in the next couple of years.
How is that money accumulated, Eugene?
Yeah. So basically, on a weekly basis, we're sending um, 0.4% of the gross handle to the state for the breed fund, which 0.4% of the gross handle doesn't sound like a lot back in the day when the gross handle in the state was 10 million. But now when it's like $1.5 billion, that is a big number.
When you're talking gross handle, are you talking just of the historic racing,
Yep.
the games? So the
Just
historic
just through
racing,
just through the historic horse racing. So
just to clarify for people who are curious, this historic racing thing, because that's again where most of this money's coming from. But it's a gaming tool or program
yeah, it's a
where
gaming product.
where they've taken a whole number of historical races and races that have happened in the past, and they don't give you the names of the outcome. So you don't know. You can't just go back and look and say, "Oh, that horse won that race." You don't know, but you have the past performances. I guess you can go in and handicap it, and then see if
Yeah,
you can bet and
yeah,
predict what actually occurred in that.
yeah. So to be clear, there's what they call auto handicapping. So you can choose to just go with the top three betting favorites in that race, and most people just do that. And but the favorite wins 1/3 of the time. So there are percentages built in that if you just go with what who the better chose on that particular day on that particular race, you're gonna have a good shot at breaking even for the day, or have a shot at maybe hitting a jackpot um, sometime in the next couple weeks or months, and that brings people back. But 91% of all the money bet goes back to the bettors.
Hmm.
So the
That's why
hold
it's a
is,
parimutuel. Yeah,
yeah.
considered
So
parimutuel.
when you bet on a live horse race, it's like 79% goes back to the bettors.
Mhm.
So, but because you can have a lower percentage here because of the rapidity of the
And you
play.
don't have the overhead, right, of running the racetrack. You
Right,
you don't have as
right.
much expense going in.
But in order to get your permits and your licenses, you have to run a live race meet. So
Mm.
that's the caveat.
Right.
So all the operators have to run a bare minimum of 16 days. Um,
And
so
right now you're when you say the operators, these are the racetracks, and you're leasing from these facilities, correct, to run race dates.
yeah, I'm right now, I'm leasing the track in Rock Springs, Sweetwater Downs. But I don't know, 7, 8 years ago, I brought racing back to Gillette. I was racing in Casper, and also Rock Springs. So I was operating three tracks at the time.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
and then
Like
Wyoming Downs came on board. So
Wyoming Downs. So how does that all work? Are all three tracks? Are you involved with all of those tracks with your program? With your
no, no, there's three operators right now, and they're all individual companies.
Okay. And then there's a new one being built, right? The next
Right. Although
race.
they're hitting a couple snags. not as easy as it looks to build a racetrack.
Yeah.
And again, they had raw land, and you got to bring in power, you got to bring in sewer, you got to bring in water, and that I will tell you, it takes an infinitely longer amount of time than you first anticipate to do stuff like that. You
Permits
know,
and
yeah. So I mean, we're in the process of building a 30,000 square foot OTB on the Utah border here in Evanston. Um, it's a racetrack is much more complicated, much more bigger, and we had all the utilities right up to the property. But even that is, a year and a half, 2 years to
mm,
to to not to get built,
mm.
from planning to actually opening the doors.
Is it going to be a hotel with it or a restaurant or just the
Yeah,
OTB?
we have plans for that. That's going to probably be phase two. That'll probably be a year and a half after we open. The hotel come in, and then
Mhm.
we're talking about possibly a conference center and expanding the gaming floor and what have you. So, but
How
it'll
does
have a huge impact on, it's going to create over 100 jobs here in Evanston, and it's going to have a huge impact on the breed fund and on purses for us.
mm,
So, I mean, when I started um, back in 2011, I think I think I had 40 or $50,000 as our purse structure. This year, we're going to be close to 2 million. And by 2027, we think we might be close to $4 million in purses.
in purses? And have the race days gone up? Um, I guess we're looking at average uh purse. I mean, I'm looking at some of these purses, even at right now they're running in Gillette, and for maiden races, I've never seen it like this before. Maiden and overnight races. Um, back when I was riding, it was, you're talking $800 type purses for a maiden race or something, and now it's
Yeah.
1,000, 12,000. Um,
Yeah. I mean, I think the trial races when my dad had the track were $500 a race.
yeah.
Now all of the tracks that quarter horse trials are 5,000, and I'll probably go up, but yeah, I mean it's a good thing to see. I mean, my goal when I first started in 2011, I told the Pari-Mutual Commission this. I said my goal was they were talking about race dates, and I said my goal is to get the conversation away from race dates to purse money and racing opportunities. Because the
Mhm.
reality is, Wyoming, we're stuck with the calendar. We're stuck, between May and October to run these horses, and now we've got three, possibly four operators. So overlap doesn't help the horsemen. But I said if there's going to be an expansion of race days, where you'll see it as the horse population grows is during the week. You're going to see, instead of Saturday and Sunday, it'll be Friday, Saturdays, and Sunday. Eventually Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So that will be, as we get the number of horses growing, that's what you'll see. And I think that every facility is going to need, 1,000 stalls at the bare minimum to take care of the horsemen.
Still a lot of horsemen, coming from these parts, and I'm hoping that we can get keep people involved, keep them involved, and want to continue to run horses up there because it is the best place going, at least in our little area, in a mountain area. Um, with regard to
Well,
Wyoming going back to Friday nights now, which hasn't happened in a long time, which
yeah,
that's
yeah.
going to be occurring this year. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's great,
Farming
but
town.
I think it's Friday nights when, my dad had it was always about the locals coming out.
Hmm.
Um,
No,
but
they'd have fun little, concerts, and they'd make some event out of it typically.
yeah, casino night and a lot of things, a lot of fun, dollar beers, dollar hot dogs. So it's especially in the summer too. I mean, when the sun doesn't set till 9:30, you got a lot of daylight to get some races in on a Friday night.
Mhm.
So I mean, you can start at 5 and still get 7 or 8 races in, no problem.
Years ago, maybe not too many years ago, people were thinking that racing live racing was just going to be consolidated down to just a handful of racetracks, and the sport was just going to go to more of the simulcast viewing, where people didn't really care to go to the races. Do you do you feel that way, or is that trend kind of reversing and people are starting to want to go to the races again?
Well, I think the boutique meets like Del Mar and Saratoga prove that, you can have a short meet and drive the traffic to it. You see that with Wyoming Downs. You see, they draw the biggest crowds in the state because of a phenomenon, I think, in the Intermountain West that hurts me in Rock Springs, but helps Evanston, is that on the weekends, people in the Intermountain West want to get the hell out of Dodge. They want to go up to the lake, go up to the mountains. They want to get out of the heat in Salt Lake. Where are you going to go? You don't have a lot of money, but tank of gas and $5 general admission, it's a pretty fun way to spend the day watching the horse races. And
Mhm.
so, they can get crowds of 2,000, 3,000 people, whereas the same phenomenon occurs in Rock Spring, but it's a population of 40,000, and now those people are going out of town. So I have a much smaller universe to try to get people to come out to the races. But like I said, I think if you have events that can draw people, brewfests, car shows, what have you, I don't know anybody I've ever forced, dragged, and prodded to come to the horse races that after the day said, "Oh God, that was horrible. That was so boring." I mean, if you can't get excited watching horses come down the stretch, you better make sure you got a pulse, brother, because I don't know what to tell you, but
Yeah.
to me, that is something that is something special that makes our sport so special, is that level of competition.
It's hard to
And
replicate, isn't it?
yeah,
And I mean, I rode them for many years, and I know the excitement of riding a race horse and going that fast and winning. But I will tell you, and you probably feel the same, the ownership part of it is actually even more exciting. And I don't know why that is, but there's just so much buildup, and you don't get the opportunities every day. Like as a jockey, I was riding 8, 10 horses every single day. So you don't win on one. Oh well, jump off and you're gonna get on another one in 30 minutes. But as you own a horse, there's something different. There's something very special about it. The buildup and the anticipation and waiting and paying and thinking about what could be and what could happen. And I love this story about going back to right now in the big world of thoroughbred racing, the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, the Belmont. We're in Triple Crown season, and they just ran the Preakness last weekend, and we talked about an influencer, a social media influencer, a young kid. He's probably in his early 20s, and he had a fractional ownership of this horse that was in the Preakness called Sandman. And you probably watched that, Eugene. But I'm interested to know what management in the racetracks or the racing industry, or those powers that be, if they're looking at that from the standpoint of how do we bring more people into this industry, because it is traditionally known as the grandfather and father's sport, and the young people, hey, they don't have time for that, or they don't know how to get involved, and they're
right.
too
Yeah.
busy and they just don't understand it. And so yeah, passing thing, passing fad.
Yeah.
But gaming is
Well,
huge.
yeah. So, I know I'm involved with CJ Thoroughbreds, which is the brainchild of Corey Johnson, who was one of my mentors in life and my boss at Lone Star Park. And they put together these ventures, and they bring in, they'll raise a lot of money. I mean, they'll raise like 2.5 million, but they'll have all these investors in it, and some are buying big chunks, but some are buying small chunks. I think, on one of these ventures, I bought in for $50,000, which was maybe 3% of the whole venture. But we had a horse last year, Hang the Moon, that ran in the Breeders' Cup.
Mm.
And every one of the owners, I mean, even though you own a small part, it is really exciting to have that. So I know the juice you're talking about, and there's a lot of avenues to get involved in small fractional ownerships. I'm trying to do with some of the horses that I'm breeding right now is try to get people involved with them. But the beauty of the way these ventures are structured is that you put up the money, and this is what I like most about how CJ Thoroughbreds do it. You put up the money, and there are no bills until after the 2-year-old season. So that means when we raise the money, it's going to be X going to buy the horses, X for training, X for the vets, X whatever. So nobody has to put up any more money. And now you're, as a 2-year-old, you're off and running, and now you know if you have a runner or not.
Mm.
And some horses get called out, some progress. But I've never had to put another nickel back into the venture, but I've gotten the benefit of, owning a horse and having the thrill of that horse run in the Breeders' Cup.
Right.
But I mean, I will tell you though, the thrill of having a quarter horse jump up and win a $80,000 race at Wyoming Downs is no less exciting than the Breeders' Cup. I can tell you
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely. No, I think it'd be fun to see more of that going on even at the local levels and around these tracks here because that's talking about building up the excitement. You just mentioned it. You have a small percentage of the horse, but imagine that many other people, and it could even bring in younger generation who might not have a huge sum of money to go out and get involved in a single horse, but they could certainly afford a few thousand in a partnership arrangement with other friends, family members, or even people that they don't know. It can make some great connections that way. And it's just a matter of finding the right people who can organize those deals, put them together, and then have a trainer that's willing to accept that many owners
Yeah.
into the
Well,
program.
yeah. So see, myself and Corey, we're putting together these Wyoming ventures that we're trying to bring people into,
Hmm.
to, you know, have, instead of being a part owner of one horse, be a part owner of 5 or 6 or 7,
Yeah,
and, reap the benefits through the
spread out your risk.
breeders awards and through uh, the purse money going up here. So trying to do it in my own little way, but there are definitely avenues to do it if you want to get involved.
Yeah. Well, it's good for the people listening who may have never considered horse racing to be something that they could
Well,
participate in.
yes, I mean, let's put it in perspective. I mean, what's the odds of you all being part owner of the Boston Celtics?
Right.
Slim to none, and
Right.
Slim just left town, right? But this is like a mini sports franchise, and that sense of pride of ownership and working with the trainer and watching the horse run, it's it's your way of owning a sports team.
Mm-hmm. It's one of the most exciting things I have ever done. And I've been in horse racing my entire life. And I can tell you right now that,
Well, when we were at Wyoming Downs, you didn't give me the time of day. You didn't say hello to me, but
oh, that's
you
not true.
you
That's
put a
not,
big hug around my neck in the winter circle at Rock Springs.
I,
After you've won a
yeah,
race,
tight buddies, you know.
and I
Yeah, I
said,
can come up there and won a race. I remember I was terrified of your dad, though, back when I was 16 years old, starting out at Wyoming Downs. And, I'd never been around an Eastern guy back east. And he was very direct. I remember him coming into the jockey room one day, and all the old guys, running the room, the old boys, Vaughn Maxfield and Glenn
yeah,
Lowry, and some of those guys who are the representatives, so to speak. And there was a really muddy racetrack that day, and I can remember this. There was a race run, and a couple of those guys came back in and just decided, hey, we're not running. We're not going to ride anymore. It was like a boycott. It's like, hey, we're on strike. We're not riding. So what am I going to do? I'm 16 years old. I just have to fall in line and be a good soldier. And your dad comes in, and he was flaming pissed. He was like, what the hell are you guys doing? Let's get back out there. I got a race meet to put on. I got all these fans here. And I could totally understand his point of view. It's a lot of money you're going to lose right there. But No, those guys just put their foot in the ground and said, we're not doing it. Anyway, that was my first experience with your dad, but I got to know him a lot better after that, and found him to be a very, very generous, very nice man.
Yeah. Yeah. So, my future brother-in-law was mountain biking up around Lily Lake one day, and all of a sudden, here comes this black Mercedes with the window rolled down. Guy has a smoking a cigarette coming up a 2-track towards Lily Lake, and he thought, "Oh my God, the mob has moved into Evanston. What the hell is going on?"
Smoking a cigarette.
But my dad loved fishing, and he'd take his Mercedes down mountain roads just to get to a little fishing pond.
Oh, wow. No, that's perfect. That's perfect. You guys made a heck of an impact on this in the mountain area and horse racing. So all you Joyces, any other family members involved in racing?
Not really. My brother Patrick was involved in with United Tote back in the day, um, but he's gone on to bigger and better things um, in the area of. I mean, he's more wonky than I am, but I mean, he's just a brilliant kid. He's into precision laser cut lenses. I mean, I can't even describe what he does, but it's pretty much just Mike and myself. But because of these ventures, with CJ Thoroughbreds, I've got my brothers involved. So now because we're separated by miles and years and everything, but now my brothers and I mean, literally on a daily basis, are texting each other about a horse that's going to run at Gulfstream, or a horse that's going to run in Texas, or one that's going to run here in Wyoming or Santa Anita. And
Mm.
so, I mean, again, they own a piece of my piece, which is microscopic, but it's the thrill of ownership.
Piece, yeah, it's a piece. It's like owning shares in Apple. To you, you own 100 shares of Apple. It's a microscopic piece of the company, but
Right.
you're
Right.
like, hey, I'm involved. I'm in. I'm owner. I'm an owner in this business. I always tell my wife, I don't mind if you go spend a lot of money at these stores as long as I can buy stock in a company. That's one of my first criteria. Look at Costco. You drive into the parking lot, and
Yeah.
you can get pissed off about it, or you can say, I'm happy to see all these customers because I'm a shareholder in the business. But that's
Right.
kind of the way it looks with the horse racing piece. Glad that it's
Yeah, I mean,
bringing
look,
the family together.
it's a tough business. I mean, our industry is built on hope, right? I mean, my dad used to say, "No man with a good 2-year-old in the barn ever committed suicide." And I've got babies on the ground, and I look at them. Could this be the one? Is
Mm.
this baby is this foal as good as I think it looks? And but I've got to wait another 2.5 years. Um,
To
to
find
find
out.
out if it's going to be a runner or not. But in the meantime, it's a lot of fun, and hope springs eternal. The races are just starting in Gillette, and then on to Wyoming Downs, and on to Rock Springs, and I think it's going to be a really um, fun 3 months this summer. And I hope anybody in earshot comes up to Evanston, or if you can make it out to Rock Springs, and come see what the excitement is all about.
Absolutely. I'll vouch for it. I mean, horse racing is something else. If you haven't experienced it, get up there, be a part of it. Just even if you're going up to bet on some horses for the day, hook up with Eugene. He'll tell you what to bet on. I might be able to help here and there too, but he's probably better handicapper than
Yeah,
I
you're better.
am.
You're better at picking pretty horses. But people want fast horses, Billy.
I
They want
like
to know.
fast. Yeah, people even asked me today, do you miss it? And I said, only the fast ones. I don't miss those ones that come squealing in there 5 or 6 lengths behind, especially on
Yeah,
a muddy day. But
yeah,
one
yeah.
day,
Well, like I said, it has its rewards. I think it's all well worth it. But the concept of getting involved with a syndicate or a venture, it spreads out the risk, and I think it's a great way for someone to get involved.
mhm.
So
Maybe we'll see some of those take off, and we'll see some of those little businesses pick up and some ventures start right here. So get some people involved and get them out to the races. I hope that it continues to thrive. So Wyoming is our last bastion, but it's surviving and thriving actually.
Yeah,
So
our last best hope. But again, if anybody wants to, just go on Google CJ Thoroughbreds, go on their website. There's some buying opportunities to get involved if you want to. Um,
Corey
and
Johnson, the former president of Lone Star.
that's right. He's
Right.
actually the interim CEO of the Maryland Jockey Club. He is in charge of tearing down the old Pimlico and building up the new Pimlico
Hmm.
over the next 3 years. So
Right.
that's gonna be something that's
Oh, I didn't
interesting.
know they were building. I know Belmont Park is in a construction process right now too. They're tearing that
Yeah,
down. The Belmont has to run at Saratoga this year again. So a lot of new parks being built. So that must mean racing is doing well.
yeah. When people say, well, you know, Eugene, you didn't build that racetrack. That you're just racing. You're just leasing a fairgrounds. I say, really? What do you think Del Mar is?
Yeah.
Del Mar Thoroughbred Club leases the property from the,
From the
the San Diego
county,
County
right? They don't.
Fairgrounds.
Hmm.
So,
That's right.
but
Well,
hey, it's a benefit for all of us. What's happening here, and um, I
and so
think
many people that are involved in horse racing. So I commend you. Thank you for coming back to Wyoming and starting this back up again because so many people owe their livelihood to people like you who had a vision and was able to put in the work and make things happen.
yeah,
Eugene Joyce, thanks for joining us on Harnessing Your Wealth, where we talk about wealth, we talk about family, we talk about being successful and what it takes to put in the miles to achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve. Until next time, everybody, take care.
Thank you for listening. For more information about today's show, please check out the show notes. Visit our website at www.petersonws.com or give us a call at 801-475-4002. Peterson Wealth Services is a registered investment advisor. This is a paid-for advertisement. Information presented on this program is believed to be factual and up-to-date, but we do not guarantee its accuracy, and it should not be regarded as a complete analysis of the subjects discussed. Discussions and answers to questions do not involve the rendering of a personalized investment advice, but are limited to the dissemination of general information. A professional advisor should be consulted before implementing any of the options presented. Peterson Wealth Services.